what does type B mean? Type B regressions is where you need to make up your own points, like no points are given. So type A, I call the one that you saw on the exam, where it's like, here's a bunch of values, just enter them all, come up with your sinusoidal regression, you're good, right? But this one is the one that you need to come up with your own points. Okay. So let's highlight this as making sure that we've covered it. So here are the steps that I kind of want you to go through. But these are just like suggestions. Like, I'm not saying you have to follow this every time. But the first step that I normally take is determine the max, the min, and the mid. The question will give you enough clues to determine all three. Okay? I will use a different color for this part here. Note that you could start below ground or below the water. Then you have to make sure you use negatives. So this would be your min, this would be your max, and this would be your mid, right? The midline. That's going to ultimately be D here, right? And your equation, if you do your equation, whatever you determine this number to be, that is going to be the D value of your equation, okay, guys? That you should see that. The max, right? What do we call the distance between the mid and the max? Amplitude. It could be the radius of a wheel, okay? And could you ever have, don't write this down, okay? But let's say you do this, and you're like, my midline is 10, and I think I look at this number, this is 17, and this must be 8. That's good, let's go. Let's type this in. Should you see something that's like, something ain't right here? Do you notice that? If from here to here is 7, why do you have 2 here? That doesn't make sense, right? So when you do something like this, make sure that whatever the distance is between the mid to the high is the same as from the mid to the low, okay? Watch out for that. I will just make a note here. These should have the same distance, right? Same distance from mid. Okay, that's very important. Sometimes the question will tell you what the lowest is and what the highest would be. They'll just tell you that. Or they'll say the lowest is 0, you're on the ground, and this wheel, listen carefully, this wheel has a diameter of 10 inches. This wheel has a diameter of 10 inches. You should know that if you're at 0 here, the diameter will get you all the way to the top. Okay, guys? That is all the way to the top. So there will be various ways to figure out these different pieces. If you know the low and you know the high, you can add them and divide it by 2 to get your mid. Okay? That's one way of doing it. Enough said. Like, you'll see when we do the example. I just want to give you a little heads up. Okay? Go ahead. The next thing, very critical, I'm going to use a different color for this, is determine the period and the X scale. The period is X number of units for a full cycle. If you have more than one cycle given, make sure you get your period by going time divided by the cycles to get the time for one cycle. This is very important. What am I saying here? Sometimes for whatever reason, listen carefully to this part. The question will say, this Ferris wheel spins 10 times in 10 minutes. 10 times in 10 minutes. And some students think, oh, the period is 10 minutes. No, remember what the period is, how much it takes for one full revolution. So if it says this thing spins 10 times in 10 minutes, you're going to go 10 divided by 10, and then you figure out that one revolution is just 1 minute. So the period is really just 1 minute. Okay? That's what I'm saying. It doesn't happen very often. Most of the time it just gives you this is how long it takes for one cycle. But if not, that's what you need to do. Next, to get what I call the X scale here. So we take our period and we divide it into quarters. We go period divided by 4. And this will give you the X increment as we jump between the min, the mid, and the max. That's why we're going to do that. Every time we're going to split our period in 4. And you end up with 5 lines. Okay? 5 vertical lines. And the last thing is this starting point. I'm going to use a different color for that one. Do I have a different color? I do have one. It's hidden here. Determine the starting point. Read carefully. Determine the starting point. Is it at a high? At a low? Or at a mid? Like, where does this action start? Where does the question tell me this action starts? Okay? So let's say you have a pebble stuck at a tire at the lowest point. If you have a ruler, please do this. What I want you to do is you figure out your min, your mid, and your max. Okay, that you will determine. Then you'll figure out the period, which is it's going to be a full cycle. Got it? You're going to split that period in 4, so you end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You split it into 5 lines. You draw 5 lines vertically, but you have 4 sections like that. It's almost like a guitar riff or something. Anyways. So you start, let's say this question says you start here. If you start there, if you start at the top, at the highest point, which is the only way you can go from the highest point. You can go down, right? So a quarter of a period will get you to the middle. So you go here, middle. Another quarter of a period will get you to the lowest. Another quarter of a period will get you back to the middle. And another quarter of a period will get you back to the max. How many points do you need to do a sinusoidal regression if you just look at this here? You need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points for a sinusoidal regression to work. A full cycle. Okay? Need at least 5 points for sin reg. Can you get rid of this? Because I just kind of contradicted. The pebble is stuck at the lowest point. Just cross this out. I think the example tells you everything. Okay, we're going to cross this out too, the bungee jumping. We'll just make it up as we go. If you start at the lowest point here, let's say the question gives you an indication that you start here. Then we will split this into quarters again. And the only way to go after, when you're at the lowest, where is the only way you can go? You can go up, right? So that'll be here. Another quarter of a period will get you there. Another quarter of a period gets you there. And another quarter gets you back down. You've got your 5 points just like that. I'm going to get you to just omit this one. I'll just omit. I think I'm just going to jump right into an example with you, and then we'll take it from there. Because right now this is all theoretical stuff. Let's get right down into the word problems. Here's our first one. Can I just see on the side here, this is a little cheat here. What I focus on is, I focus on figuring out my Y scale, like what's the min, mid, max. Then I focus on X scale. Right? Can you go period divided by 4? So Y scale, X scale, we just really find the period divided by 4. So this is step number 1, step number 2. And then third is starting point. That is kind of what I want you to think of every time you do one of these. Can I figure this out? And I bet you will be able to, right? What is the period divided by 4 so I know how much am I going up by in terms of my X values? And then determine where do I start in this whole thing. Okay, so let's read this. The paddle wheel of the SS Beaver has a 13 feet diameter. Let's highlight that part. So the paddle wheel has a 13 feet diameter. It revolved 30 times per minute when moving at top speed. Using this speed and starting from a point at the very top of the wheel, I will give that a different color. Starting at from the very top of the wheel, write a model for the height in feet of the end of the paddle wheel to the water surface as a function of time in seconds. Assume the paddle is at 2 feet below the water surface at the lowest point. That's also important. A, determine the sinusoidal equation relating the height and time. So they want you to figure out a sinusoidal equation. You have no points whatsoever. So let's do that here. A, I want you to do this. And then I want you to do this. Doesn't have to look pretty, okay? But we're going to determine the 3 lines here, and we're going to determine the values for the lines along the x-axis. You ready? Let's have fun with this. What do we know? What are some of the things that we know for sure? We know, I don't know if we know that this is 13 feet. That's the paddle wheel. Okay, that's the diameter of the wheel. So from the lowest to the highest, it's 13. It's the diameter. If it had said radius, then it's not from top to bottom. Radius is then the amplitude. Okay. However, where do we start? Like, sorry, what else do we know about the heights here, or like the depth? We know that we are at 2 feet below water at the lowest point. That is a fixed point that I can start off of. So this is -2. So now you have options. Could we find out the amplitude? If we know that this is 13, right? We can just find the amplitude, or we can just add 13 to this to get to the top. It's up to you. I'm going to go 13 divided by 2 is what? 6.5, right? Feet. This is the radius, also known as the amplitude. So I can simply take this, add 6.5 to it, which will get me to 8.5. And add another 6.5 to it, which would get me to, this is right? No, this is not right. I'm just adding 2 plus 6.5. This is -2 plus 6.5, that's 4.5, my bad. Stop doing that. This is already complicated as is, right? I get it. Yeah. So 6.5, add another 6.5. That gets us to 11. So Y scale is taken care of. This part, check, right? Now let's do this part. What is the period here? It revolved 30 times per minute. We don't want 30 revolutions. We just want, how long does it take for one revolution? So we're going to go 30 revolutions, so 30 revs divided by, I'm going to go 60 seconds. Okay. Oh, sorry. I'm mixing this up. You want to know in 60 seconds, right? 30 revs. Because you want to know how many seconds for one revolution. So that would be 2 seconds for one revolution. So now you know that the period is 2 seconds. Okay, because the period is how long does it take for one full revolution, one full cycle. Once you have the period, you want to find the X scale. And that's basically 2 seconds divided by 4. Okay? And that is 0.5 seconds. So this, all of this technically, folks, is step number 2. And now the last one, where do I start this action? Where does the action start? Top, right? It says starting from the very top of the wheel, write an equation that models this. So our action starts here. And then from there, it's going to go to the middle. From there, as it turns, it's going to go to the lowest point. Keeps turning, goes there. Keeps turning, goes there. We're almost done. This is important here, okay? We start, in this case, we start at time 0. And how long is it going to take for one full revolution to happen? Like, what must I have here? 2 seconds, right? It's going to take 2 seconds to go from high back to high. But we need to have the coordinates in between as well. So we know it's 0.5 of a second for every quarter turn. So this would be 0.5. This would be 1. And this would be 1.5. So in this case, it goes up by 0.5 every single time. And I'm just going to make a note here. We start there. And now we can actually come up with our equation. All of that messiness gets us to our equation. So we're going to go time and depth. I like a table like this. At time zero, we are at the highest point. At 0.5 seconds after starting, we are at 4.5. After 1 second, we are at -2. After 1.5 seconds, we are at 4.5 again. And after 2 seconds, we're back to the top. This is the hardest part of the whole unit, what I'm doing right now, and I probably threw a difficult one at you right from the get-go. So this is L1 and L2. So we just go stat, calc, sin reg. And if you do this, that's the equation. I'm going to ask you to, for now, just ignore everything else, because usually, like 99% of the time on the provincial exam, if they make you do one of these, this is going to be the end result. Like, that's the end. Like, they're not going to ask you for more after that. The reason being is if you get this wrong, like sometimes B and C won't even make sense, right? So this is usually where it ends. I just go over and above with my questions. But if you can get from the question to this, you're doing good. Can I just ask you to verify your equations? There's two things you can, this should be plus, sorry. That'd be -1/2, by the way, on the exam. Does plus 4.5 make sense for us? It does, right? Like that is our midpoint. Like if you look up here, we determine that that is our midpoint. And is 6.5, does that make sense? Yes, that's what we determined to be our amplitude, right? So if these numbers don't jive with what you've come up with, then something isn't right. You gotta go double check and make sure this adds up, okay? So, I'm gonna ask you to try, and I'm not saying they're gonna be easy, 36 to 38. All you really have to do, okay guys, listen to this. All you really have to do is show me that you tried this, right? You went through the steps and you came up with an equation. All the other questions you may omit. You may ignore everything else. I just want the equation. I'm actually going to write it down. Equation only. Okay. Oop, you can't see that. There, equation only. Don't worry about anything else at this point.